Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Chance, and today I'll be reviewing the game Moon Colony Bloodbath. So in this game, players are going to be trying to create a thriving moon colony. Unfortunately, you're going to be playing as a bit of an overconfident scientist that decided they don't need to read the instruction manual. This is going to lead to a lot of dead colonists. So let's get to how this game works. The central focus of the game is around the progress deck. So on a turn, players are going to take the top card of the progress deck, flip it over, and just do what that card says. So in this case, I flipped over a work card. So a work card is going to be the only card that allows players to actually take actions. There are going to be a total of 4 in the deck, and essentially once you run out of cards in the progress deck, you're just going to reshuffle and do it all over again. So in this case, work, I'll take an action. There are a total of 5 actions printed on my player board. Most of them are just going to be producing various types of resources like money, food, or drawing more cards from the deck. And then there's one build action. Now I'll say that the build action is going to be the priority for players. Build is going to allow you to get cards from your hand into your tableau, and these cards are going to power up your other actions. So there's going to be a bit of an engine building aspect to this game. So the cards I play, like for example, Potato Farm here, this has the bold text farm. Farm is one of the actions on the board. The base action is going to allow me to gain 4 food, but if I have the Potato Farm out, I'm going to get an additional 2 food. So you can see how as you build up as you add cards to your tableau, you're going to be powering up these actions and getting stronger and stronger over the course of the game. But the game's not going to be so easy because we're going to continue flipping cards from this progress deck and bad things are going to start to happen. So this next card I flipped here is the Trouble card. So Trouble says add the next event to the deck. So there's a deck of event cards. There's going to be 13 in total, and they're always going to be the same for every game. Essentially, when you see that Trouble card, you're just going to take the top event, you're going to add it to the deck, flip it over, and resolve the effects. Now, the beginning events are usually not too damaging, but eventually you're going to get to events like event number 4 here, which is a leak. This is going to say you lose 4 colonists. So in this case, I have to go to my player board, remove 4 of my colonists, and then we just continue on flipping cards from that progress deck. Over time, we're going to continue adding more and more of these bad cards. So every time you reshuffle this progress deck, you're going to continue seeing these bad cards and continue losing more colonists. Then eventually you're going to hit the point where you run out of colonists on your player board. Now you actually have to care about this number I didn't call out on these cards earlier, which is in the top right, which is the number of colonists that reside in those buildings you built to kind of build up your engine. So once you're out of colonists and let's say event number 5 comes up and you have to lose 2 people, but I have no one on my board, I now have to decide what building do I want to destroy and have those colonists move into my main colony. So here I have the helium mine, which has 8 colonists. So if I lose this building, I'm going to gain 8 colonists to my board, and then I have enough now to deal with this event number 5, which says -2. And I get to continue playing and continue flipping cards and see how far I make it. So this leads me into the game end. The end of the game is going to trigger when one player has run out of colonists, which includes basically all the colonists on the board and all the cards in their area. And then the player with the most colonists wins the game. Now, the other way the game ends is if you manage to reach it to event number 13, which is when your overconfident scientist says, fine, I'll check the instruction manual. And then you all have a thriving moon base, but the player with the most colonists wins the game. Now, there's going to be some other cards that I didn't mention that are going to be added to this deck, and some of them might be good, like there's some twist cards that'll be good and usually give you some resources if certain things happen in the game. There's development cards that are kind of like a shared benefit on the moon, so like on top here I have the moon buggy, so every time this card comes up, if it gets added to the deck, you'll draw a card and discard a card. But there's one more card that's going to be added, which are the robots. Unfortunately, you didn't do a great job of programming these robots, so occasionally you're going to be adding these robots to the progress deck and flipping them over and processing what they say. And the robots will glitch out and generally kill your colonist. So in this case, I flipped over a helpful robot. This is going to unfortunately not be too helpful because it's going to kill 7 of my colonists, but I get to draw 1 card, so maybe it is a little helpful. And that's going to be the course of the game. It's going to you're going to build up that engine, and then you're going to tear that engine down as you try to have more colonists to continue surviving with more and more card flips. Now let's get into what I like and don't like about this game. First up is the humor. So that's what actually drew me into this game. Like the art on the cover, the name of the game was Moon Colony Bloodbath. That's what got me to actually buy this game. And when I played it, I was actually super excited about this because the theme really comes through with just the minimal amount of art and the naming and the flavor text on the cards. So for example, there's a few event cards in here that I always enjoy reading. It just brings out kind of that dark humor that this game is trying to create. So let's look at event number 8. Event number 8 is it's just an accident, and I'm gonna lose 3 people. Now, if it just said that, this would be a pretty boring card, but there's a quote on here from your leader, and I like reading this out every time I play. It says, "To calm down, I have some hot cocoa. I've started to develop a Pavlovian response to the sound of air escaping and people screaming." So things like that just kind of bring you into this world and kind of this dark humor that the designer and the artist tried to create. And that goes into other cards like the robot card deck. So like I said, when you draw these, most of them are just going to be like, lose X number of people. And we can see that here with like the kitchen robot that I currently have up. We have some art here with the kitchen robot preparing some food, but then the effect is that I'm going to lose 4 colonists. But it also says if you don't have at least 8 food, you're going to lose another 3 colonists. Ooh, so what happened here? The kitchen robot glitched out, killed 4 people, realized it didn't have enough ingredients for its food, and then killed another 3 to put into its dish maybe? I don't know, but that's the type of theming that this game has, and I feel like they do a really good job with the minimal amount of artwork and words just to kind of bring this world to life a little bit. Next up, I want to talk about the arc of this game, because I think that's where this game really shines. The arc I find very addicting. It is this thing where in the beginning, you feel like everything's going great. You're building up this cool engine. Maybe you go after producing a bunch of money and you're like, oh, I can build any building I want. This game is easy and things are gonna be perfect from here on out. But then you start getting into that later half of the game. So maybe around that 60% of the way through or 70% of the way through, things start to take a turn. Once you run out of the colonists on your board, that's kind of the game saying, your buffer's gone. Now we're gonna start destroying things. So now you're switching gears from being like, I'm taking these actions to try and build up my engine, to you're now just trying to respond to the progress stack and try to decide which buildings to destroy while you wait for that next work card to show up. So now I have to be like, ooh, do I need this potato farm to continue producing food, or do I need to, can I get rid of that so I can use like the clone banks to continue adding colonists when I do the research action? So you're gonna be slowly tearing down your engine and trying to find a way to just get a few more cards out so you can have a few more colonists as fodder just to make it through one more card flip. And that is an arc that I thoroughly appreciate. I enjoyed it in video games. Like I played some RTSs with that kind of theme where like Action Not Included, where you're building up some sort of space base and you have colonists moving in and trying to do various actions and everything in the beginning is fine. Then slowly everything starts to crumble and then quickly all your colonists start to die off. And then I would just trigger that game again. I want to play another round because it triggers something in my brain where it's like, ooh, that was fun, let's do it again. And this is where I want to talk about the multiplayer experience, because I found this to be mostly a solo experience. Like there's not a lot of player interaction. As you add more players to the game, you're going to see more cards. Like players are going to play more cards. Those cards are going to do more things. There's some cards that'll be like add a robot to the deck or add a twist to the deck or add an event to the deck. So you might be going through certain cards faster, which definitely adds a little bit more interest to the game than with the solo experience, because you just don't see as much when you're doing it as solo. But overall, I was like, well, there's not really any direct player interaction, so how interesting can this be? And this is where I'm going to bring out, once again, I'm going to call back to that theme. Basically, my friends really enjoyed this theme. So when I played it, I made a point of going through, and every time I drew one of these event cards, I would read off the text. So for example, when we get event number 10 with the airlock test, I'd read to the table like, okay, everyone loses 5 people. And then I read it off and it says, this place used to be so crowded. I mean, I know, horrible tragedy, but it's kind of nice. And then everyone at the table gets a little chuckle and we move on. And so all my friends kind of enjoyed kind of the dark humor being created in this world. And then I want to mention that change from kind of going to from that engine building to that engine tearing down. Because at the table, you flip over those cards and you realize your stock's getting a little low in colonists. You're like, ooh, I might need to start making harder decisions now. But you flip over that next card and you lose a couple of people, but then you hear someone across the table yell, ah, shoot! Like they're like, I gotta start losing buildings. And it just brings out, I'm gonna use the phrase, misery loves company. Like, sure, you're suffering, but someone else over there is also suffering. You're all suffering together. Like you're all going to turn at a little bit different of a point, but eventually you're all going to be struggling and kind of in that state of kind of suffering and figuring out what parts of your engine you're going to start tearing apart. And I'll admit that that was a more exciting experience than I originally anticipated. Now, next thing I need to talk about is going to be replayability. This is where I think I'm going to have the biggest problem with the game. So as I mentioned, playing with other people, I had a really good time introducing this to friends. I even imagine that we might want to play it a couple more times. Like, I think I'll be bringing this out a few more times. I like introducing it to new people because the theming is just interesting. I really think that that central progress deck is really cool. It's a really cool mechanic. I think I could see other designers kind of incorporating this into more of their games. Like, this is a very well structured game. But the theme, as you play this more, it loses that luster, loses its shine over time. Like, as I play this more and more solo, every robot card I draw, it's just like, okay, cool, I lose 5 people. Okay, cool, I lose 5 people. Okay, I lose 7 people, I gain 2 money. So they kind of, the art loses its impact, the naming loses its impact. It's just kind of going through the motions as I play the game more and more. And I imagine that would be the case as I play this multiplayer. Now, I don't want that to be a huge turnoff for some people because I think there is a lot of joy to be had with this, and I find the art to be very addicting, so that might not be a huge concern for a lot of people. The other problem with replayability, though, I think is a bigger issue for me, and that comes down to just the feeling of being clever in a game. So there's other solo games I play. There's actually a lot of solo games I play. Like, I recently reviewed The Lucky 7. I also play Resist. I really love just a few others that just they're a nice solo experience, quick to play. But these other games make me feel clever. Like, when I'm playing The Lucky 7, I figured out a cool positioning or a cool way to use my abilities or to position my soldiers on the board. Like, I feel clever. I feel like I did something smart. Or in Resist, which Resist is another one that has very minimal text and minimal art on the cards, but brings out a lot of theme. But it also makes me feel stressed when I lose people. It makes me feel bad when I have to lose cards from my hand, and it makes me feel clever when I figure out a way to save certain people for the next round. So it has that thing where I feel like I did something that was smart. Whereas this game, Moon Colony Bloodbath, I played it about 7 or 8 times now, and I don't think I've ever felt clever. It's just kind of like I've built up my engine and then watched it fall apart. It kind of just feels like I'm going through the motions and just playing the cards that seem interesting in the moment. I don't think I've ever had that instance where I'm like, oh yeah, that was a really smart move. Like, I did this to make sure I made it to this round. It was just like, oh, this is interesting for my hand. Here we go. Let's just see what happens. So it's kind of like just putting things down and watching the game kind of play out on its own. And that's the biggest downside. Like, well, when this goes back on my shelf and I want to play a solo game, is this going to drive me to bring it back out? I think the only thing that drives me to bring it back out is this kind of nice dark humor theme, but is that enough for me to continue getting this to my table? Now, I'm not going to say that I'm never going to play this again, but I will say that I am concerned that once I am done with this review and I put this back on my shelf, if it's ever going to come out again. I don't see this staying in my collection long term. I could see playing this another 5, maybe 10 times and thoroughly enjoying that experience. And to me, that would be worth it. Like, this game is already worth it. I already got a decent amount of playtime out of it. But it's not going to be one of those games that I return to all the time. I'm not going to be sharing it with my friends all the time. Now, the other thing that makes this a bigger issue is actually the cost of this game. So this is a $50 game, and there is not a lot in this box. There's a bunch of cardboard tokens, a simple cardboard player tray thing, and then some decks of cards. And for $50, that's in the game industry, that's really not a lot. I don't like comparing different publishers together because there's things like economies of scale, there's different places you can produce your game. So like Lost Ruins of Arnak, you can get for the same price as this game, but it comes with so much more stuff. But Rio Grande Games also makes Race for the Galaxy. Race for the Galaxy is a box about half the size. It, to me, seems like it has about the same amount of stuff. I feel like they could have done something to kind of produce this game at that same size as Race for the Galaxy, and if they would have put this in a smaller box and hit that $35 price point, I think this would have been a slam dunk. Like, this would have been a great game. I would be like, yeah, 10 or 20 games at that $35 price point and then resell it, that I think it would be totally worth it. But at 50, it's like are you, that's a steep price for this amount of game. I feel like I can buy so many other games that are gonna give me a more repeatable experience. Like I just called out Resist. Resist, I think you can pick up for, well, let's say $25 or $30. And that one has that, it has the theme, it brings out the theme, it makes me feel clever when I play it. I'm gonna get way more playtime, or I have gotten way more playtime on a Resist than this. So this makes it a hard thing to recommend when it costs $50. If they manage to bring this in cheaper, I think it'd be an easy recommendation, but at 50, it's just, it is difficult to make that recommendation. So this brings me to kind of my final points of this review. Overall, I don't want any of those negative things I say to detract from the fact that this game has been a joy. Like I have enjoyed every play of it. I always get a chuckle out of some of these cards. I get a chuckle out of those event cards and reading those quotes. The thematic elements in this game, for me, they really work. Like this is a genre I like. This is a genre that I actually love. And that arc that this game has, it is addicting. Like just building that up and then watching it fall apart, even though I don't really feel clever during the game, it's an addicting flow to this game. And I can really see some people just wanting to repeat that over and over and over again. Like I bet some people are gonna get 50 or 100 plays out of this and not even care about the theming in this. Whereas me, once I lose that connection to the theme and I just start seeing the numbers on the cards, it becomes less interesting for me to bring out. So that's just a personal preference though. Like some people love just playing with those numbers, playing with those buildings and trying out different strategies. But I can see that it's already starting to lose some of that shine, some of that luster after less than 10 plays. While I mentioned that yes, this game, I do expect it to hit the table again, this is not something that's going to be staying in my collection long term. I think I've gotten what I wanted out of the game, and at this point, I'm not going to be sad to see it go. But hopefully that helps. I hope this gives you an idea of this game and if this game is right for you or not. Like I said, if you have an opportunity to try it, I highly recommend it. I think it's fun. So if you've had a different experience with the game, please let me know in the comments below if you have any comments that you want to share. And then as usual, thanks for watching and please like and subscribe.